Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Wednesday live stream on all platforms, where we talk about music and marketing and mindset and vision and artistic vision and all of the pieces that independent artists need to survive and thrive. Thank you so much for joining me today. As you're coming on, leave a comment in the chat where you're tuning in from. I like to see where people are, how global we are, and where people are actually tuning in from. So today I'm talking about the 5 secrets to sing with better breath control and hold out notes longer, which tends to be an issue that can be easily resolved. And I see a lot of it going on. And I'm excited to talk about these top 5 secrets today. So just a reminder, every Wednesday I put out a blog, which is the subject of the live stream. So you can head on over to carriecole.com and get the contents of today's live stream all laid out for you, nicely organized with exercises and all of the details. So you don't have to take notes. And you can sign up for our list at carriecole.com and you'll get that blog every week in your email inbox. And now, so before we start, what would it feel like to actually finally reach your vocal potential and feel a real shift in your voice? If you haven't yet, I recommend that you head on over while it's still up and get my free 4-day Better Voice Challenge. You will instantly sing better and sound better in these 4 1-hour workshop style sessions where you can experience a transformative shift using these new sequences I created within the Cole vocal method to open up the voice, unlock your voice, decrease strain, anchor and align your sound, and expand your power and resonance. And this is free, guys. So um, make sure that you head on over there and get access while it's up. Those of you that are in Vocal Freedom Circle, the evergreen version that started in May, it is up in, you'll find the Better Vocal Challenge. We added it to your bonuses. But make sure you go through those sequences and get it while it's still up. So let's dive in. The 5 secrets to sing with better breath control and hold notes out longer. So, secret number 1, I'm just going to go through the 5 and then I'm going to dive into them. Secret number 1 is maintaining a lifted chest to hold the breath longer. Secret 2 is to unlock the diaphragm. And I have some tools for how you actually do that. It starts in the rib cage. Secret 3 is to avoid over engaging the accessory muscles during breathing that actually cause more constriction and tension. And secret number 4 is to hold notes out longer using my chest press and sternum press um, uh, technique that we use that helps to keep the chest lifted, but also provides some additional support because the minute that the chest goes down, the diaphragm is up and the air is out of the lung and you're singing from the throat. Secret number 5 is to sing with straight tone as well as vibrato, and the use of straight tone also helps in breath control. So basically, let me dive in. Has anyone ever really truly explained to you how the diaphragm works in a way that you've understood? And if not, you're not alone. It is often quite misunderstood by singers and even vocal coaches. So, breathing and breath control is one of the most important aspects, I would say, of singing well. You really want to get that balance of air and muscle in your vocal path. And we teach this inside the Cole Vocal Method, taught inside the Vocal Freedom Circle. And coming up this October, we have a brand new experience, very intensive, immersive experience for singers to come and master the Cole Vocal Method that you learn in Vocal Freedom Circle. So if you're interested in that immersive experience, the Vocal Freedom Circle is a prerequisite for that program starting in October. We will announce it on the 18th of September. So if you want to be a part of this incredible journey we're going to go on from October to September, this coming for a whole year, make sure that you have gotten the Vocal Freedom Circle and you've learned level 1 of the Cole Vocal Method. We are allowing people to come into the Vocal Mastery program. This is the new program um, and purchasing the Vocal Freedom Circle and doing that for the first 3 months, because the first 3 months we're really going to focus on mastering the actual method of level one. But make sure you're on our email list so you get all of our notifications for when we go live with that program. So, here are my top 5 secrets to singing with better breath control and holding the notes out longer. So, number one is to maintain a lifted chest to hold on to the breath longer. So, alignment really affects breath control quite drastically, actually. And most people have a slightly slumped posture, which then the diaphragm is in an upward position. And we all know that the diaphragm needs to be in a lowered position because it pulls air into the lung. So, most people in general are slightly slumped in the chest. So, if you're really looking for breath control, this is the absolute very first thing that needs to be established inside the mechanic of the voice and inside the vocal path, I call it, or the breath muscle alignment for the vocal path. Because even with the chest slightly dropped, singers are singing from their throat. It also has to do with more than I can go into today, but I teach this inside the cold vocal method, that the pectoral muscles are the first muscles that anchor the laryngeal muscles. So when the chest is slightly slumped, the pectorals are not available to actually give the proper support. You know, so much with breath control and support is talked about in the abdomen. And this is a long ways away from the throat, right? So we have a whole trunk of the body from the collarbones down to the pubic bone that are a big support, as well as the intercostal muscles that surround the rib cage that actually make room for the diaphragm to drop. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you'll never see a well-trained singer or opera singer with a dropped chest. Does anyone know why? You'll never see a really good trained singer with a dropped chest and a forward head. Does anyone know why? Give me your best guesses, right? For good reason, because of what I just talked about, that the actual elevation of the chest makes room for, we didn't talk about this yet, but the elevation of the chest has to do with breath control. So if you're noticing you're running out of breath, notice that you're dropping your chest. The minute that you're dropping your chest, the air is going out, and then there's no air for the voice to function on. Does that make sense? So, um, when secondly, when the chest is dropped, there's no support from the pectorals and the trunk of the body, which actually anchor the laryngeals and give it more resistance against, you know, the increased pressure for higher notes or faster speed or all of those things that are happening when you're singing more difficult things, right? So the key is to maintain a lifted chest during the singing, also during inhalation or exhalation. So if everybody can just put their hand here at about this point. So if the end of my pectoral muscle is really from here to here. Okay. The bottom of my pectoral muscle, if I go right over into the center of my chest, that's about the right spot. Could be about 5 inches, 6 inches down from the collarbone. Everybody is different in their anatomy. Some people have a longer passage or décolleté or chest area right from there, but this is about the right spot. What I want you to do is just take your hands and like you're going to scoop up. You're going to scoop up your chest. You're going to scoop up your chest towards your chin. So you're bringing the chest and the chin closer. So it's not pushing chest forward, right? Really good alignment is tipping the chin down and pulling the chest, lifting the chest up towards the chin, right? So there's a closer relationship, right? And you may feel in the back, you may feel some tension in the back muscles, right? That's indicating that those muscles going across the body are tight because of a slumped posture position, not used to holding this position. So over time, those muscles start to stretch out and that goes away. But this is the beginning to really being able to maintain good breath support and hold notes out longer, is to be able to keep the chest lifted as you sing without right. so that even just a tiny bit of a drop in the chest means you're pushing air out. It's an indication that you're thinking that you need to push air out to sing. You actually don't need to push air out to sing. You need to retain the air and contain the air underneath the glottis, the opening, the vocal folds, where that vibration occurs to give fuel and juice to the voice, right? This is just a quick overview in this live stream. I go much deeper into it on my mini voice lessons, my YouTube videos, and then inside the Vocal Freedom Circle, which now you can get. It's an evergreen program. So it's an 8-week program. You can just go through it in your own pace, right? And you learn, you get the first 70 exercises of the cold vocal method, and it teaches the entire breathing, the entire vocal method within those 8 weeks. So go on over and grab that. Um, okay, number two, the secret is to unlocking the diaphragm. And how many people feel confused about the diaphragm? There's a lot of conflicting information. The one thing that I will say to begin with is that the diaphragm has no nerve endings. So we can't feel directly the diaphragm, but we can feel the surrounding muscles. That's why vocal coaches are always talking about breathing down into the belly and that kind of thing. But there's another key area that's extremely important that if we don't get to, we aren't actually unlocking the diaphragm. So think of it like this. Here's my hands. The hands are your rib cage. Here's the diaphragm. The diaphragm is like an odd shaped hand, and it's not completely perfectly symmetrical as you see in anatomy books. It's usually off to one side or might be symmetrical on some people, right? But here's the rib cage, and the diaphragm is inside the rib cage, and the lungs sit on top of the diaphragm, right? And the lungs are shaped like triangles, right? So most people only access the top portion of their lung by breathing up into the chest, up into the chest, right? However, we want to get down into this lower portion of the triangle where we're going to be able to get more breath capacity and be able to have more breath while we're singing, right? And then it's what you do with it, right? You don't want to let it all go by dropping the chest, as we talked about in number one. So, but the key here is the diaphragm inside the rib cage, right? So if the rib cage, if the belly, if you're breathing down in the belly, but the rib cage is not expanding to make room for that diaphragm to go down, or maybe it's expanding here but not all the way, okay, then we don't really get that breath into the lower portion of the triangle of the lungs. So it's very important, and you can just put your hands on your rib cage and take a nice breath in and exhale. And as you exhale, squeeze your ribs together. Okay, now keep that pressure on the ribs and very slowly, inhale slowly, breathe into the rib cage very slowly to feel that swing. Do you feel that swing out of the rib cage? And then exhale. Keep the pressure on the ribs with your hands to make it easier. So breathe in slowly. Do you feel that swing out, right? We want to work on that and we want to improve that. And it is 360 degrees all the way around that we want to feel an expansion there to make room for the diaphragm to drop down, right? And there are 28 muscles that wrap around the rib cage, which makes it a little more difficult because many people are tight in that area because that holds our alignment, right? So that holds us upright, right? And many people have a lot of tension. And that's why when singing teachers say tuck the stomach in, to support the sound, just tuck your stomach really tight. Do you feel it in your throat, right? That's why that advice is the wrong advice. So in really good singing, you're actually staying expanded. Ah, instead of ah, ah, instead of squeezing, because the minute you squeeze, the diaphragm goes back up, the ribs go in, diaphragm goes back up, and there's no air, and you're singing on muscle. Okay, so it's very important to be able to stretch those intercostal muscles, and those are the little muscles that go right in between the rib cage. You can feel them there, and they're tight on most people. So to unlock the deeper, wider triangle of the lung, the ribs must expand outward to make room for the diaphragm to descend. Um, And it's also important to avoid tucking your stomach inward to support your sound, because this causes the constriction on your throat. It actually doesn't support the sound at all. It tightens the vocal muscles and pushes the air out, so you'll have much less breath. Number three, to avoid over engaging the accessory muscles during breathing that cause more tension. Are you guys digging this? I don't see a lot of activity. You're either taking notes or you're absorbed or you're scrolling. But give me some feedback in the chat as to whether this is really, give me a thumbs up or, okay, good. This is speaking to you. I think a lot of vocal coaches don't know these pieces, and we are on a mission to change that. We are creating a movement as of this October into really bringing these methods out into the marketplace that really haven't been in the marketplace. Um, and then keep in mind that the blog has this all detailed, all the notes are there, okay? But it's really important because singers are getting the wrong information. And as a result of getting the wrong information, you guys aren't stepping into your full destiny as a singer, right? So it's very important to learn the correct methodology. And if you want to learn it, go and get a seat in my Vocal Freedom Circle. It's now an evergreen program, and you can whiz through it in 8 weeks and you learn the entire method, and then you can get ready to come join us in October for this unbelievable, epic, immersive experience that we're creating. And Vocal Freedom Circle is a prerequisite to getting into that program. And this is the first time I'm teaching this level of depth in an online setting to a wider group of people. This is usually a material that I only teach within my private training, my private students. So, number three is to avoid the over engaging the accessory muscles during breathing that cause more tension. So, many people have overactive accessory breathing muscles. And what accessory muscles are extra muscles. They're accessory, they're an accessory to the primary muscles that we need to use. An example would be to gasp or make audible sound when you inhale, like, right? When you make that sound, it only dries the throat out, which causes a lot of problems. Another example of accessory muscles is raising the shoulders when taking a deep breath. And we're not even getting into the rib cage that we just talked about, which is where the real action needs to be. When we breathe only into the shoulders, we're breathing into that tiny little upper portion of the lungs, and we're not getting a really full breath, right? So those are two examples of accessory muscles that we don't want to use. So we want to avoid engaging the accessory muscles when breathing. And it leads to a question people often ask of, should you breathe through the nose or the mouth during singing? For general health, when not singing, nose breathing is recommended. But during singing, you want to use a combination of both nose and mouth breathing, as the mouth is open to sing. So to stop and breathe through the nose is not efficient or useful, doesn't really work well for quick breathing. In my main diaphragmatic breathing exercises that I teach in the Singer's Gift and inside the method, we breathe through the mouth, but to avoid drying the mouth and to avoid engaging the accessory muscles, we breathe as if we're sipping air through a small straw without making any noise. So it would be like this, right? And I'm focused on my ribs expanding. Ah, ah. And also notice how when I'm getting ready for that first note, notice how I didn't go, ah, ah. I'm not tucking my stomach in. I'm not dropping my chest. I'm staying expanded. Ah. This is the trick, guys. Number four, hold notes out by longer by keeping the chest lifted during singing. So we talked about the importance of having the chest lifted to be able to access the deeper portion of the lungs in tip number one. Secret number one. Secret number four now is to be able to keep that chest lifted while singing. Most people lose their breath at the start of the phrase. Does anyone know why? Most people lose valuable breath at the start of the phrase, and we call it the onset, at the onset of the phrase. One, by thinking you need to push the air out to make sound. This is a mistake. You'll only end up in your throat with no air. Um, and number two is by dropping the chest even slightly, even just like ah, 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 instead of ah, ah, ah. Watch again. This is wrong. Ah, ah, ah. It's a very subtle drop, but it's pushing air out instead of ah, ah, no movement, no drop, right? This retains the air in the lung and gets the trunk of the body supporting the sound and taking the pressure off the throat and maintaining the air in the lungs. Okay. Then there's more exercises over there on the blog that you can walk through to help you manage that. Okay. And number five is to sing with straight tone as well as vibrato. Does anybody know what straight tone is? So straight tone is singing without vibrato, but not tight, right? So an example would be ah. Vibrato, straight tone into vibrato is ah. Demonstrate again. Ah. Okay, so many of you don't have control of the vibrato like that or control of the straight tone. This is something that you really work into your voice. And straight tone manages the air better. And it also has a better effect when you're singing. You know, people have that long note and they're, you know, if you sing a long note and you go into vibrato right away, ah, or ah, sounds more musical theater, sounds more operatic. However, when you do ah or ah, right, that kind of idea, it's more dramatic. You are able then to crescendo or to swell the note, right? It has a much more dynamic effect. And when you go into vibrato early, you are releasing the air because the vibrato is a release of the air, right? The vocal muscles are doing this. It doesn't come from the jaw. For those of you that, you know, if the jaw moves a little bit, it's no big deal, but it doesn't really come from the jaw, right? Ah is incorrect vibrato. Ah, it's really these muscles doing this. And when you don't have vibrato, it's because these muscles are too tight. We can fix that very easily by using the chest press and getting the correct motions inside the body to take the pressure off of the throat. But straight tone helps to manage the air, and it is accomplished by, I call it the C shape. So when I hit the note, ah, I don't move anything, but I'm also not holding it tight, okay? Ah. Okay, that's an example. And that really helps with breath control. And again, there's another little exercise over there on the blog that you can try. And you really want to practice this in my master vocal exercises, which those of you that have been practicing the cold vocal method with the singer's gift, let me know if you are in the chat, or the vocal rescue kit, some of those products that we have out that are part one and part two of the cold vocal method. So the level one, part one is part 1 through 4. So level one of the cold vocal method is the singer's gift warm-ups. The vocal rescue kit is part 2. The master voice building exercises is part 3. That is not an individual product that I sell anywhere. That's only available inside the Vocal Freedom Circle because I have to teach it. It's not a product I can just put out. I need to be able to teach it. So that's part 3 is the master voice building exercises. And then part 4 is the first 4 fundamentals from the bigger library. And that's inside the Vocal Freedom Circle. But the master vocal exercises, whenever you're singing them, I always leave a note at the end of the vocal exercises for you to practice that straight tone into vibrato and practice it on all of your notes because it's an important thing to get into the voice to be able to not only have more dynamics but better breath control. So we've got about 5 minutes left. Anybody have any questions they want to ask me, now is the time. Put them in the comments on Instagram or on YouTube or Facebook for me. Happy to answer them. Quick reminder, there's no live next week as I'm taking an end of summer break. I'll be back on September 4th. But you can head on over to YouTube and watch all of the previous episodes of the live in the live video section. So many tips and tricks for your voice. And do your voice a favor. Go grab the Vocal Freedom Circle and learn the co-vocal method over the break. Any questions anybody has? I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you got a lot out of this. Breath control is a really important piece, and learning to get that balance between the breath and muscle and not overuse the accessory muscles, and get the right alignment so the breath and the vocal path can flow correctly. A question here from Garrison. Should the breath control be the same no matter if you're using chest, head voice, or mix? Yes. What happens as you go higher is there's more breath velocity. So there's more speed of air. So you need to really have the better form to be able to maintain. So as you get higher, you're going to start pulling the chin up. You're going to start grabbing from the back of the neck. The chest is going to go down. All of those accessory muscles are going to go into bad form and lose breath because it's harder, and the body is just going to reach for the most convenient muscles. So it takes more skill to be able to maintain that posture and breath control. And we rely upon also the chest press, which is a technique that I teach inside the method for exactly how to control that as you sing higher. And then there, of course, are other tips as well that are going to help you. You're welcome, Natasha. My pleasure. I love connecting with you guys and help you. Can you give any tips about getting vibrato into your voice? Yes, Anya. Good to see you. We just had a session. And we were talking about it in the session, right? So singers that have trouble with vibrato have more tension in the muscles of the throat that are constricting and tightening, right? And in the neck muscles. And that this area needs to be really loose and free for the vibrato to happen more naturally. So if we're taking the tension off the throat, where do we put that tension? What did I teach you, Anya? So where do we put that tension to take it off the throat more, to provide more freedom in the voice? What would be your answer? Oh, you're welcome. Oh, yes, Jeanette. Oh my gosh. See you. Oh, thank you. It's one of my favorite jackets. One of my rock and roll Zadig and Voltaire jackets. I felt like dressing up on my last day before my break. Um, yes, point of apagio. Very good, Anya. So, point of apagio. Point of apagio. Yes, thank you. Point of apagio means the place where you feel maximum muscular tension when you sing. Where do we feel tension when we sing? Most of us would point here, right? Especially as we're singing higher, more tension here, right? When we want to have a freer vibrato, a more natural vibrato. So singers that are tight here, the vibrato is too tight. All these muscles are constricting it from happening, right? So we want to get that chest nice and lifted, and then we're going to put the point of apagio. We're going to transfer the point of apagio where we feel maximum muscular tension. Instead of here, we're going to put it here. Ah, instead of ah. And as we sit back, as we did in our lesson the other day, Anya, when you were able to, through my instruction, you were able to keep the chest lifted, the chin down, and put more pressure here, the vibrato naturally came out. We weren't even talking about vibrato, and the vibrato popped right out, right? So it's a matter of practicing that in a repetitive way, using the vocal exercises every single day, and it'll start coming into the voice. Does that make sense? And then getting control of it. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining me today. This is so great to connect with you. Head on over to YouTube, watch my latest webinar, How to Build a World-Class Voice. Get my Better Voice Challenge, my free 4-day challenge. Go through those 4 one-hour workshops. You can breeze through them this weekend. It's all free. You'll see the links in bio. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram. Hit the notification bell for when I go live. I'm not going live next week. I'm taking a little break. I'll be back on September 4th. Go to our events page, see what we've got coming up. Um, and thank you for joining me today. Have a wildly creative 2 weeks. Stay curious, stay committed, be bold, be true, and be more you. The world needs your voice. Your voice. Okay, I'll see you in 2 weeks, guys. Much love. Bye.